I found my old deck box that I had, my first deck box actually from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was much younger. I think I started playing, I don't know. I started playing whenever I got the first starter deck Yugi structure deck, which was probably anywhere from like around 7 to 8 years old. And then I kept playing until like my teenage years, I think. So when I kind of stopped playing with the actual cards. And then once I was in college, I got back into playing online with a dual network before that got booted. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through and kind of remake my first Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Now, when I say my first Yu-Gi-Oh deck, it's not really my first. My first, like many people, was actually the starter deck Yugi, starter deck Kaiba decks, and then my second one after that was actually just a bunch of like high attack power level 4 monsters within just the staple cards of like Dark Hole and Mirror Force and stuff like that. I remember from that actual first deck I had, the only card I can really remember out of it was like a Wing Weaver that I had that I really liked. But this is the actual first deck that I can remember almost the entire thing. It's not going to be the exact deck because I don't remember all the cards, but I got it as close as possible, I think. And this is actually a deck that I kind of used my brain into making, not just a bunch of high level 4 monsters that had 1800 attack points. And so, really, the whole deck revolves around kind of one idea or play style or one really card, and that is Gravity Bind here, that I only have two of. Uh, when I made this deck back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I actually was using the rarity of cards. So this was a rare pull out of the Pharaoh Servant packs. So I could only get two of them because it was a rare card, not a common. And I didn't have a card store nearby at all. It was like an hour drive away, and being 8 to 10 to 12 years old, it's kind of hard to convince your parents to take you there. Plus, I didn't have any money to buy the cards with the actual cards. It was more I just kind of had to depend on my parents to buy me packs for me to open, and that's what I used. And I only dueled and played against my relatives and my classmates and some friends, so I wasn't competitive by any means. So literally, I was just using whatever cards that I just got out of packs, and that's what I made my decks with. So if I didn't have enough for three, then I just didn't have enough for three. So I had two gravity binds, but I did use a level limit area B, which is basically the same thing as like my third. And then to follow up with that, I just got more stall cards in the deck. So you had two Mirror Force cards, and then two Giant Germs. Again, only could get two of them because this was a rare pull out of the MRL set. And then one Spirit Reaper. It could also get, because they did have reprints too, so there's like the Dark Beginning 1 and Dark Beginning 2 that you could get stuff out of, like the rares as commons. And then going on from there, we have the monsters. And so, because I'm doing like stall in the Gravity Bind, I had attack direct monsters. So these are mostly going to be like your MRD short print monsters that are low level, low attack power, but can attack directly. So the Nightmare Horse I had two of. Jinzo number 7 had two of. One Inaba, the White Rabbit, that was from Legacy of Darkness. One Legul, that was from MRD. Two Servant of the Cataclysm, or Catabolism. I can't pronounce that for sure. But this was from Pharaonic Guardian. One Mystical Lamp, again from MRD. One Queen's Double. And I had three Stealth Birds, I know for sure, because this is actually just a common pull out of Invasion of Chaos, but I could only find one out of my cards, but I definitely had three of these, because you definitely needed three of these. So what this card does is that once it's flip summoned, you deal 1,000 points of damage to your opponent, and then once per turn you can flip this card face down. So once you play it out there, you just wait. If it gets attacked and gets flipped over by your opponent, then the effect doesn't activate, so you have to manually flip it over on your main phase turn to get the damage. And then as soon as you do, you just flip it back over and then do the same thing next turn. Keep on dealing 1,000 points of damage. So deck really needs three of those. And then I have Boganian here, which is just a 3-star, 1,300 attack monster, which is kind of nice in case your opponent does have like some 3-stars that are actually like have attack power, like 1,000 attack power, and can kill off some of your weaker attack directly monsters like Jinzo number 7 with only 500 attack. But what this does is it does 600 direct damage to your opponent during every standby phase, effect damage. So I remember I really wanted like more of these, but I could only find one of them because I think this was like a short print out of Invasion of Chaos, or just not as easy of a common to get. But I only had one of those. And then to go along with all these attack directly monsters, I had 2 Goblins. So each time one of your monsters inflicts damage to your opponent's life points, your opponent discards 1 random card to the graveyard. So that was really good for those attack directly monsters. And then some Axe of Despairs to put on those attack directly monsters, so they weren't as easy to kill off, and then also just did more damage. And then had some draw power along with the Solemn Wishes because I was a noob and thought Solemn Wishes was good. So 1 Solemn Wishes, and then 1 Pot of Greed, and then 2 Graceful Charities to go with the draw power and kind of keeping my life points a little high. 1 Dream Clown just to go from attack to defense and destroy my opponent's monsters. I probably should have more of these, but I only think I had 1. And then just kind of some staples, 1 Dark Hole, 2 Sakuretsu Armor, the poor man's Mirror Force. 1 Mirror Force because I actually did pull one. This is probably the best pull that I ever had when I was a kid as a ultra rare Mirror Force from Metal Raiders. This is an unlimited card, but at the time I didn't care about first edition compared to unlimited. I just wanted the card because it was really good in the meta. And I think I was the only person out of my playing group that actually had a Mirror Force. 1 Torrential Tribute, 1 Magic Jammer. And as far as like the ban list, my friends and I, we didn't follow the ban list. We just kind of had our own kind of ban list, which was stuff like, only 1 Dark Hole, 1 Mirror Force, 1 Pot of Greed. But there was probably some card, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Change of Heart. But there was probably some cards that we should have had as like lower ban list, but didn't. So I also had 3 Magic Cylinders, and I was able to get these because there were the promos, the limited edition promos from the Invasion of Chaos special edition packs. And once I found those out, I bought 1 and saw that you could get 2 of this card and a Ring of Destruction. And I bought 2 more just to get those cards from it. And then also 3 Ring of Destructions, which this is one of the most broken trap cards in the game. Being able to just select one of your opponent's monsters, destroy it, and then deal damage to both you and your opponent, like, it's just so powerful, and how you can use it. And then you can also just use this as a game ender. So those that combine with the Magic Cylinders, you're just doing a ton of effect damage to your opponent. And then because I'm running so many traps, like 2 Mask of Darkness flip effects to add a trap card from your graveyard to your hand. So that was just kind of my deck. It was much more different than what my friends and like my classmates and relatives were using. They were using more like standard, attack your opponent, attack your opponent, overpower them, high attack monsters, and I was kind of just using this Gravity Bind deck. That's what I called it, was my Gravity Bind deck. And by no means is this the most efficient way of building a deck around like Gravity Bind and effect damage and whatnot, but this is just what I had and what I used. And it's not the exact deck that I had by any means, but it's for what I can remember. This is what I used. So this is by far like my favorite deck, and I used it for quite a while until doing different decks. And you can't really use this deck anymore by any means because Gravity Bind, for one, it's only effective against level 4 monsters, and now that XZ monsters and Link monsters are in the game, XZ monsters have ranks, not levels, and then Link monsters don't have levels or ranks. They're just monsters, I guess. So yeah, those gravity bind and like level limited area B won't work on those at all. But that was my deck, and I had fun playing it for sure. It was a different way of playing the game that annoyed my friends a lot, and was definitely, like, I could understand it being annoying because you're basically just preventing your opponent from being able to attack you while you just chip away at their life points until the game's over and you win. But yeah, it was kind of my first time actually using my brain to build a deck and not doing what everybody else did when your first deck was just like, oh, high attack monsters, put them in the deck. But that's all for this video. My eBay and Instagram information are in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching.